Hello, everyone. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Xiaoyu Zhuang, and I came from the Department of Social Work and Social Administration, the University of Hong Kong. I'm so glad today that I was given this opportunity to present the studies that I've been doing with my supervisor, Professor Daniel Wang, in the past 2 years concerning promoting mental health and mental well-being of university students. The topic today of the presentation is evaluating the efficacy of the mental health first aid program in Chinese international students in Australia and Hong Kong. So there are two studies that will be reported. The first one is based on the data we collected from Melbourne, Australia among Chinese international students. And the second one was based on a pilot study of the mental health first aid program among Chinese mainland students in University of Hong Kong. So first, let's go to the research background. Why we focus on this group of students? I think the first reason is because there's a substantial number of international students worldwide. According to UNESCO in 2018, there are around 4 million international students. That's taking up to approximately 2% of the total amount of students enrolled in higher education worldwide. So the number is substantial. And Chinese international students account for a significant portion of this population, distributed in host countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And Hong Kong has become a popular destination for higher education in the past decades too. So there are many mainland students that came to Hong Kong for their college studies, university studies. And why the students, international students are focused? The other reason is about their worrisome mental health conditions. A study found that tertiary students have higher levels of psychological distress than age-matched population controls. And furthermore, it is because believed that international tertiary students may have even worse psychological distress. It is because in addition to the common stressors experienced by the tertiary students, such as academic pressures, financial and housing stresses, and interpersonal difficulties, the international students, tertiary students, are more likely to face further adaptation difficulties in transiting to a new environment, such as language difficulties, perceived discrimination, homesickness, and social isolation. It is understandable, as if we go to Australia for study, we need to be good at speaking and writing English. And then if we come Hong Kong for a study, besides English, we need to master some skills like Cantonese. So language difficulties quite obvious. And also because we move to a new place to live, so we will easily to feel homesickness. And also we don't have friends here in a totally new environment, so we may feel isolated. So all these stresses may pose burden on the mental health conditions among the international students. However, despite such difficulties and the possible poor mental health, many tertiary students, including international students, they do not seek professional help. The situation may be worse among Chinese international students. According to a study, found that Chinese international students usually have difficulties in recognizing their psychological problems and delay treatment until their symptoms become rather disabling. And leaving a mental health condition untreated may result in adverse long-term outcomes such as bad academic performance, unemployment, poverty, health and mental health problems, self-harm behaviors, and even suicide attempts. So it is very harmful to leave a mental health condition untreated. That's why it is necessary to find ways to encouraging Chinese international students to seek help from mental health services at the earliest time possible. So that's the whole significance of conducting the present study to help the Chinese international students to become more willing to seek professional help. But before we do the intervention, we need to know what kind of factors that may prevent them from seeking professional help. A literature search found two major factors. One is called a lack of mental health related knowledge, and the other one is about the stigmatizing attitudes toward people with mental illness in the society. When we talk about the mental health related knowledge, we need to introduce a concept called the mental health literacy. Because mental health literacy was defined to index the knowledge and beliefs about mental disorders, which aid their recognition, management, or prevention, and has been found to be an important factor that impacts on help-seeking behaviors among people with mental illnesses. So, in the present study, we adopted the mental health literacy scale to measure the mental health-related knowledge and their belief about mental illnesses. And the second one is about the stigmatizing attitudes toward people with mental illnesses. Also, studies have widely found that because of the stigmatizing attitudes, individuals with mental illness and their family members may be hesitant to approach personnel of formal psychiatric services for help because of fear of social isolation and social hostility stemmed from the stigmatizing attitudes in the society held by most people in the society. In order to address the two factors that prevent people from searching professional mental health help, a standardized educational program was developed by Professor Anthony John in the University of Melbourne with his wife, Betty Kitchener. They developed this program in order to combat mental health problems in the general public by increasing their mental health related knowledge, mental health literacy, improving their attitudes, especially stigmatizing attitudes, and stimulating helping behaviors. And let's look at more detailed about what is the content in the program. The program includes mainly included three aspects of content. The first one is about the definition of mental health and information relating to the epidemiology and impact of mental illness in the countries or areas or regions of concern. And in the present case, we introduced the epidemiology and the impact of mental illness in Australia and Hong Kong. And the common cultural and social misunderstandings, such as people who have mental illnesses are dangerous, are discussed. And the impact of stigmatizing attitudes and discrimination on the help-seeking behaviors of people with mental health concerns are also discussed. The second aspect include some detailed information about several common mental illnesses, which includes depression, anxiety, psychosis, and substance abuse. Under each category, information is provided about the biogenetic and the psychosocial environmental causes of certain mental illnesses. The key symptoms of the subtypes of each category of mental illness are introduced, and the pros and cons of various interventions are also introduced in order to help people know what kind of interventions, professionals, and medications are helpful, and the importance of early intervention and crises associated with the disorder, such as suicide associated with depression and a panic attack associated with anxiety, and other helpful social resources. All this information are hopefully the participants with these resources will be more motivated to seek mental health professional help. Last one is about a step-by-step action plan called LG. This plan was taught to help people know how they could help a person who is experiencing a mental health crisis or who may be developing mental health problems. The plan includes A, approach, assess, and assist the person, and I means listen non-judgmentally. G means give support and information. E means encourage the person to get appropriate professional help, and the last E means encourage them to seek additional support. So these strategies are quite practical when we provide help to the people that may have mental health concerns, and it is also some strategies that we could care the mental health problem. They care about our own selves mental health problems. Let's see more details about the Australian study. We don't need to mention more about the backgrounds about the large proportions of Chinese international students, and many of them are having psychological distress, and only a few seek mental health professional help. We adopted quasi-experimental controlled trial design with 3 times of assessments. One is before the intervention, and the second one is immediately after the intervention, and we have 3 months follow-up test. Participants should be university students who are aged 18 years and above, and who should be born outside Australia, and who should claim themselves to be ethnic Chinese and able to understand and speak Chinese, and those who should be enrolled in various undergraduate or postgraduate programs offered by universities in Melbourne, Australia. Then let's move to the questionnaire part. We had 4 sessions in the questionnaire. The first one is mental health literacy scale. This one has been widely used in the program evaluation study for the mental health first aid program, and it was also developed by Professor Anthony Zhang. And the Chinese version has been translated and validated by Professor Daniel Wang. We adopted 2 vignettes describing a person suffering from symptoms of depression and schizophrenia. 3 sets of variables will be generated from this questionnaire. The first one is recognition. The participants are asked if the person described in the vignette are suffering from a problem, and a correct answer for either depression or schizophrenia will be getting a score of 1, and the wrong answers will be getting a score of 0. And for the second one is knowledge. 3 sets of questions concerning helpfulness of professionals, helpfulness of medications, and psychosocial interventions are asked. To what extent the participants identify appropriate professionals, medications, and psychosocial interventions for either depression or schizophrenia will be calculated to indicate their mental health related knowledge. And the third one is the causal beliefs about mental illness. Participants are asked to rate to what extent they believe these problems described in the weakness are due to either biological, psychosocial, or traditional causes. And the second part is the social distance scale developed by Link. The scale asked the respondents how willing they are to have social relationships with people with mental illnesses. So that represents the stigmatizing attitudes. In addition, we also use the perceived unpredictability and dangerousness of people with mental illnesses as another representations of stigmatizing attitudes. And the last one is the collection of demographic information. We hypothesize that when compared to the control group, the participants in the experimental group would have a greater increase in knowledge of mental disorders such as recognition of depression and schizophrenia, and agreement with mental health professionals about the treatments for people with anxiety and schizophrenia upon completion of the mental health first aid training and at 3 months follow-up. In addition, we also expect that a greater reduction in social stigma will be reported by the participants in the experimental group toward a person with mental disorders upon the completion of mental health first aid training and at 3 months follow-up. Okay, then let's look at the data and results of the Australian study. From this table, you can see the demographic information of participants. In total, there are 102 participants in the mental health first aid group and 100 participants in the control group. Over 75 to 80% of the participants are female, and around 15 to 24% of the participants are male. And the mean age of the participants are 24 years old, ranging from 18 to around 38 to 40 years old. And their major, the courses that they're studied are quite diverse. We can see that for the participants in the mental health first aid group, 35% of them coming from the background of business and accounting, whereas in the control group, 43% of them came from social sciences. So the backgrounds are quite different, and it is also indicated by the chi-square test. You can see that there is a significant difference. So we controlled the major that is studied in the data analysis. And also, and next we can see the degree of the participants. Around 54 to 73 of them are from postgraduate programs, and around 26 to 40% of them came from undergraduate programs, and no significant difference was found on the degree variable. And continue, we can see that the distribution of the birthplace, and 87% of them come from mainland China. Both groups are the same, so there's no difference. And for the English proficiency, that's about 90-something% of them claim themselves to be as average and good English proficiency, and 87 to 88% of them are single. And no significant difference was found for the English proficiency and marital status variable. And let's continue. Let's move to the means and standardized deviations of the various outcome variables and the results of the interaction effects. We can see that from this table, this is the depression weeknight. We have 4 time and treatment interaction effects in this table. A significant interaction effect indicate that the two interventions have different effects on participants. And you can see that the participants in the mental health first aid program reported better recognition of depression and increasing level of knowledge about appropriate treatments and interventions for mental illnesses. And as for the cultural beliefs, they adopted higher levels of biogenetical and psychosocial causes in understanding depression than participants in the control group. So these other results favored the mental health first aid group. And let's move to the schizophrenia weakness. Same results were found for the recognition of schizophrenia variable and knowledge variable, which means that participants in the who completed the mental health first aid program reported better recognition of schizophrenia and reported increasing level of knowledge about appropriate treatment, intervention, and professionals that may treat schizophrenia. And let's move to the the bottom of the table. We can see that for the social distance scale, social distance variable, we got another significant difference, which means that participants in the mental first aid program reported reduced the social distances when compared to their counterparts in the control group. So all these results are also favored the mental health first aid program. But surprisingly, we did not find a significant time treatment interaction for the confidence interval, which means the intervention did not change much on the confidence in providing help to people with mental illnesses variable. That's quite different from previous studies, where they always reported a significant increase in the confidence. So this is a summary of the results. When compared to the participants in the control group, the participants in the experimental group reported better recognition for both depression and schizophrenia, and the better mental health knowledge for both depression and schizophrenia. And the participants in the experiment group also reported better improvement in the adoption of biogenetical and psychosocial causes in understanding depression symptoms. And last, the participants in the mental health first aid program also reported a greater improvement in social distance than for people with schizophrenia than participants in the control group. All these effects were found to sustain at 3 months follow-up. So all these results are quite promising, and given these general positive results, it is recommended that such evidence-based mental health first aid program should be extended further to promote better mental health among Chinese tertiary students in universities in Australia. However, surprisingly, we also mentioned before that there's no significant increase in confidence in providing help to people with mental health concerns. This may be related to the contextual factors. For example, many participants, over 70% of them have been living in Australia for less than 3 years. So it's a relatively shorter time, and due to possible adaptation difficulties, such as lack of language proficiency, insufficient understanding of extreme cultural values in the receiving society, and for unfamiliarity with the mental health services, both on campus and off campus, they might not have the confidence to offer help to others after only a 12-hour course in basic mental health training. So future studies may see to include some other additional strategies that could help them to increase their confidence to provide the help to the people around them who have mental health concerns. And then let's move to the Hong Kong pilot study part. As mentioned, mainland Chinese immigrant students have been taking up the largest proportion, which is around 70%. That's really a big number. So it's also quite significant, quite important for us to care for these groups of this group's mental health. And as it is just a pilot study, we do not recruit a control group. So it's just a one group pre-post and a follow-up pilot study. Participants are aged 18 years old or above, and they should be born in mainland China, and they should be able to understand and speak Chinese and enrolled in various undergraduate or postgraduate programs offered by the University of Hong Kong. And this is the demographic information for the participants in the Hong Kong study. In total, we have 53 participants, and among which 70% of them are female, and around 25 of them are male. The main age of the participants are 25, ranging from 18 to 35. The major are also diverse, with the most proportions are from highest proportions are from social sciences, followed by those from engineering or computer background, and education background. Also half of them come from a master degree program, and followed by doctoral degree programs. And 80% of them are single. So these are the profiles of this group of participants. And here is the table that's showing the means and standardized deviations of various outcome variables at pre-test, post-test, and follow-up test. And the right column presents the time effect from the repeated measures ANOVA analysis. And we can see that in the depression weeknet, we have 1, 2, and 3 significant results, which means participants, once they completed the intervention, they reported increasing number of correct recognition of depression, and increasing levels of knowledge about appropriate treatments, interventions, and professionals for depression problems. And also we got a good results for the stigmatizing attitudes variables, that is reduce the social distance after they completed the mental health first aid program. As for the schizophrenia weeknet, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 significant results. That's very exciting and encouraging. People completed the mental health first aid training, reported better recognition of symptoms of schizophrenia, and increasing levels of knowledge about appropriate treatment and interventions and professionals for people with schizophrenia. And they also reported increasing endorsements of biogenetical and psychosocial causes in understanding symptoms of schizophrenia. That's quite exciting, because usually we found it is quite hard to change their causal beliefs. And then as for the stigmatizing attitudes related variable, we found people reported decreased perceived dangerousness towards people with schizophrenia, and also reduced the social distance. However, the perceived dangerousness just decreased between pre-test to post-test, when it comes to the follow-up test, it increased again. So the changes, the decrease for the perceived dangerousness was not maintained. And then unlike the data we found in the Australia study, we found that this group of participants reported increasing levels of confidence in providing help to people with mental illness after they completed the mental health first aid program. That's quite different from the Australian study. Also, here is a summary. After completion of the mental health first aid group, the participants reported better correct recognition of symptoms for both depression and schizophrenia problems, and in the mental health knowledge of both depression, and reported better adoption of biological and psychosocial causes in understanding schizophrenia symptoms. And also they reported reduced social distance and reduced the perceived dangerousness. And at last, participants reported a significant increase in confidence in providing help for people with mental illnesses. Okay, after reviewing the results from the two studies, here is a quick discussion and some recommendations as well. We could see promising results also found in the Hong Kong study, but definitely future studies using more rigorous research design and larger sample size are needed. Unlike the Australia study, confidence in providing help was found to have significant increase. Contextual factors such as Hong Kong is mainly a Chinese community with Chinese culture as mainstream culture, and also the mental health service provided for students are using Chinese, some are providing Mandarin services as well. All these factors may motivate the students to seek some help for themselves and also for their friends, so that their confidence in providing help are easily to change. And the third one is similar to the Australia study. It is also difficult to change causal beliefs about various mental illness and stigmatizing attitude, such as perceived dangerousness. So definitely additional efforts are advocated to address this point. Also, we have some recommendations based on the two studies. We could see that mental health first aid program can be implemented among universities in Melbourne and Hong Kong as a potentially effective psychoeducation program for Chinese international students, increasing their mental health literacy and decreasing their stigmatizing attitude. Additional efforts and strategies should be developed to address the deep-rooted psychiatric stigma held by Chinese tertiary international students. For example, we could provide factual information of dangerousness of people with mental illness, or we could provide opportunities for participants to have real and positive contact with people with mental illnesses. But all these efforts and strategies are warranting further effectiveness examination to see whether they can really help to addressing their stigmatizing attitudes. And last, strategies such as public lecturers and visits to mental health service agencies, campus counseling centers, can be also provided to Chinese international students to help them increase their confidence in seeking help and providing help to the people around them. Because such experiences may help them to get more detailed information about the mental health services and professional resources that are available for them. So we believe so I believe these experiences may help them to increase their confidence, but also these are recommendations and also warrant further examination. So that's all for the presentation today, and thank you very much for your listening. And all the comments and feedback are welcome for us to further enhance our research. Thank you.